All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for jumping on and listening in today. My name is Andy Drake, and I am the Senior Elite Program Coordinator here with NCSA Baseball, and very honored to have Coach Jayson King on from University of Dayton. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Appreciate you carving out some time here. I know it's a busy time of year with the spring season getting started, just a few weeks away from opening day. How's things coming along with the spring so far?
Coming along well, but couldn't get in there to practice today, so that's a little bit of a bummer. Um, but other than that, it's going really well. I think the guys are progressing the way they need to get ready for opening day.
I know you guys are in obviously a very strong A10 league there. How you guys feeling about the league this season? Who's some of the teams that you guys are really kind of battling with there for those postseason spots this season?
Yeah, the league stuff, you just never know. Sometimes you think teams are going to be good and they're not so good, and sometimes you think they're going to be not so good and they're very good. So we don't really put too much stock in any of that. We really
Mm,
just know that the weekends in the A10 are going to be challenging, and we need to be prepared on our end to be able to face those challenges. So as long as we handle that kind of stuff on our own and we're taking care of our stuff in-house, then I think we'll be ready for the challenges that the A10 conference stuff presents.
absolutely, control what you can control. Right now, the ticket to the postseason really is, especially at a lot of kind of mid-major type of conferences, is really through that conference, right? So it's really about handling business there, getting to the conference tournament, and then taking it one day at a time from there, right?
Yeah, it definitely is, but it's an old school mindset here. It's
Mm,
just like everything, anytime the scoreboard's on, like we're trying to win. So like, opening day, we're gonna put our best foot forward as we would during the conference stuff. But obviously the conference stuff matters a little bit more because it is the gate, the gate to the NCAA tournament, unless you just pretty much run the table. So
absolutely.
we know that and we understand that, but we try to approach each game like it matters a lot, which it does, and then just try to be the best version of ourselves as we can.
So I'd love to get some thoughts from you, Coach. The last 5 or 6 years, man, there's been a lot of change. Our heads are almost spinning with so much of the changes around recruiting and the landscape around that. I just would love to hear your perspective on kind of the adjustments that you guys have made in recruiting and kind of how you go about roster construction when you start to like communicate with guys. Just some perspective, some insight on what's going on and kind of how you guys have adjusted to some of the changes these last handful of years.
Yeah, and we're still, we're adapting every day
Mm,
and changing every day and thinking about stuff differently every day. But I think the biggest thing is for us is, we like players. So when you like players and you see good ones and you can get them, whether they're high school or junior college or portal, they're all attractive. I think the biggest thing is trying to be fair, in a way that is going to allow people to develop properly. So there's a lot of good high school players out there now, but you have to monitor them straight through almost until they get to campus because you just don't want it to be a situation where they're not going to be able to get on the field for a while, and that stunts the development a little bit. So the high school guys just have to be really good, and they have to be, physically ready and mentally ready. So it's not a situation where like it used to be where guys wait their turn and then they get their shot. It's like if freshmen, aren't going to be able to come in and contribute right out of the gate in some way, then usually it becomes challenging for them just because there's another batch of JUCO guys and another batch of portal guys that they're going to be up against the following year too. So they have to be relatively in the picture to be able to play as a freshman. And you don't really know that a lot of times when you sign players out of high school.
mm.
You can forecast it, but you don't know for sure. But I think you have to continually monitor stuff, and then just make sure that all the moves you're making make sense to winning. And now, like it used to be when I was at Franklin Pierce at the D2 level, it was year to year. It's basically build your team year to year and try to win that year, and then do the same thing next year. I think that's how it's gotten back to,
Mm.
where for a minute there, it was a lot of planning for the future as it relates to recruiting. But now I think it's more just year to year. What does your team look like this year? What's it going to look like next year? And not so much 2, 3 years down the road anymore.
Absolutely. And some of that is just kind of the structure of how things are with roster sizes and so forth. There's just unfortunately not the room, right, for some of those, maybe projectable walk on type of guys anymore on the roster, right?
Yeah, that's the case. But you don't want to be totally closed off to
Hmm.
that because some of those guys end up being your best players down the road. So it's just it's an art really. There's no science to it,
Hmm.
and you got to just follow your gut as far as where someone might end up. But you don't want to pass up on a guy that has a huge high ceiling and then never get that high round draft pick. The guys you're getting out of the portal and the JUCO guys, they're very good players, and some of them could be high draft picks. But I think the guys that you just don't know what their ceiling is, most of those guys are at the high school level.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it's a fine line that you have to walk to win the next year, and then you know make sense of what's going on as it relates to guys that could be really, really good down the line.
Absolutely. So with all that kind of in mind, a little insight into kind of how you like when do you guys get started? Like as far as when do you begin to evaluate potential high school? We'll stick kind of with high school recruits here. So how do you kind of when do you get started with guys? When do you start to say, all right, we're going to start to get our list put together? Obviously, the August 1st date is when you can begin to make direct contact. How quickly are you beginning to move with guys at the high school level? Things can vary a little bit from each individual case, but what does kind of the timeline look like for you guys?
Yeah, so right now it's kind of like 28s,
Mm-hmm.
29s. We're just taking names and
Mm-hmm.
trying to get them to camp. 27s, we already have 9 commits right now, so we've been kind of ahead on that. I think we're ahead of schedule on that. And then I think 26, I think we have 6 or 7 high school commits. Um, and we've had those for quite a while, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't give up on the high school guys. So I mean, if there's a 26 that we just have to have that comes up now, we'll take them, and then figure things out later. But in general, like as soon as you can start adding guys, we're trying to do it. So
Yep.
we're probably on the same pace as most other, you know, mid to high end Division 1 programs that recruit and want to get good high school players. So we're doing that. But there's you got to follow guys and make sure that they're progressing properly. That's part of the thing that I think has become really important in fairness to everyone involved.
And there's kind of the wild card of the transfer portal, as you talked about, whether it's guys leaving your program maybe a little bit unexpectedly, or the ability to maybe go get some guys that have become available. That hey, maybe that guy could help us, or we heard from a guy. So there's always some of those kind of wild cards as well, where things have probably pushed. Even though you're getting early, some things are probably pushed a little bit later too, right? Like just kind of evaluating things. It's almost constantly assessing things, right? It's not just a kind of a
Yeah.
rigid timeline anymore, is it?
No, it's not. It's
Yeah.
it's a moving target. There's no doubt about it. Because yes, I mean, at our level, if you do a great job of developing players, which I think we do, and you do a good job of recruiting players, which I think we do, there's going to be some movement there as it relates to guys trying to move to a different locations, which we hope is not a lot, but in reality, it's going to happen. And then, there's some guys that maybe you don't foresee them being part of the plan down the road. So that creates some stuff. And then next thing you know, you're looking for guys, and it just seems like it doesn't stop. But the
Yeah.
portal stuff, we add players, but it's usually in correspondence to what you lost. And you don't really find out about that until usually you start to figure things out whether either no matter what way it's going, someone's trying to go to a different level or someone's just moving on for, maybe some playing time. But you usually don't find out that stuff until middle of May. So it makes it interesting, but
Yeah.
I think we're pretty nimble as far as being able to figure out what that is and be fair to the roster that we have on campus, and then how to make sense of it so that we add the guys that we need to win the following year. But it's there's a lot that goes into that for sure.
Absolutely. It's a great insight. So, it makes it even more important, I think, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this for our families. It makes it even more important probably than ever before for families to be as open as possible to, as many division levels, as many opportunities. This trickle down has made college baseball so strong at every level, now with guys
Mhm.
who maybe have kind of gotten pushed down or have had to start somewhere else. So, the importance for families to just really keep things open is vital in recruiting, you would say, right?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think also the continual development of the player once they commit is extremely important because it matters now probably more than ever. There used to be the high-end teams that would follow players and then decide that they don't want them, as their report time's coming. I think that here that hasn't been the case too much because it's just like you want to do right by the players that you recruit. But now I think you still want to do right by the players you recruit, meaning sometimes um, their best move is to find a way to get on the field. So it's hard. But I think the biggest thing is if I had a recommendation is just get with a staff that's gonna care about your son in a way that um, they're gonna treat him right no matter what that means, whether it's stuff on campus, stuff before campus, evaluations, like all of it. I think if you have that, I think you can feel like you're being treated appropriately. If you don't have that and there's a lack of communication and things start to go astray, I think that's when people can feel some type of way.
Yeah.
But we just try to stay communicative to the families that are involved with us so that at the end of the day, we feel good about what we're doing because you do want that. And I don't think that's ever going to change for the coaches that got into this business for the right reasons. But it has become a little bit harder to maintain that for sure.
Absolutely. It's not an easy job for you guys putting this stuff together. Now,
Yeah.
traditionally, junior college has been always a great route for guys to go develop and kind of have that stepping stone. But, more and more, I think families are seeing examples of players who go to Division II or go to Division III or go to NAIAs and then have those opportunities to move up. Have you found any success with some of those kind of guys coming in? And if you do, what's that guy look like? Like, what kind of player is coming from a level like that if they're able to make that move up?
Well, I think sometimes they're hungry because
Mm,
at the University of Dayton, everything's there for you. I mean, the facilities are really nice, the campus is really nice, they're treated in a way that's, a high level and high class. So I think if you can get to that place, like a University of Dayton, you certainly want to do that. Um, but sometimes the other routes allow guys to figure themselves out, and then when they get on campus, they're more prepared to compete and perform. And then we also know more about them as far as what they're capable of as a player. Sometimes the high school guys just don't get a chance to show what they're capable of, and you don't find that out till a later time. Well, if you're getting junior college or transfer portal guys, you kind of have an understanding of who they are and what they're capable of because they have some sort of college stuff that you can go off of.
mm,
But I think they all look different, to be honest with you. I think it's just still comes down to feel. It still comes down to trying to find out as much as you can about the player, not just what it looks like physically, but how are they mentally? What are they going to look like when they get on campus? And there's a bunch of good players, and the lifts are a little harder, and the practices are a little longer. So it just the mental side and the compete side matters a lot. So the makeup's always mattered, but I think it matters now more than anything, whether it's high school, JUCO, portal. It seems to be like the most common factor on whether someone's going to be good or not. So we try to dig down as deep as we can in that regard.
awesome, awesome. So, Coach, you've had quite a journey to get where you are today, as far as your coaching journey. Some tremendous success there, as you mentioned earlier. Franklin Pierce, Division II level. UMass Boston a little bit before that. University of Dayton. Had a stop at Vanderbilt and now back at Dayton. So just kind of
Yep.
talk about your coaching journey and just sort of like the things you've picked up and things you've learned at all the different stops along the way.
Well, just started being a head coach when I was young. So I was 25 when I first was a head coach, and then I was 28 three when I was a head coach of a JV team at
Mm,
Springfield College. So I'd had to figure out how to deal with a full team. So when you're young, it takes time to figure that out, and I think you try to really control everything in a way that's sometimes not positive. And I think over time, you learn how to work a little smarter, still work very hard though, and then you learn how to make what matters most important, meaning everything you say, everything that you do, how you respond to players, how you interact with players, coaches, is all in the name of performance and winning. And I think in some stops it hadn't felt like that just because I didn't know any better, especially when I was younger or was trying too hard. But now, over time you learn that that's what allows you to win at the highest level. So, we always talk about not just getting what we can and what the player is capable of out of a player. We try to get more than what they think they're capable of. And the only way that happens is if they believe in themselves. And a lot of times that comes from the coaches. So that's a
mm,
big deal in our program. And we want guys to feel empowered that they can accomplish anything. But you learn that over time and you learn how to do that and how to execute that better as you go. And then just the more stuff you see, I think just makes you better. If your eyes are open and you're always trying to pick things up and you're always trying to learn, I think your eyes can see a lot of different things. And my eyes have seen a lot of baseball and at a lot of different places. So I can take that and I can use that to try to make players better and teams better. So it's just using everything that you see and everything that you feel, and then just trying to get better at it. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's a developmental thing, and winning is important, but at the end of the day, it's developing people and teams, and I think that'll always be the focus.
Where does academics come in when you guys are evaluating the recruits? University of Dayton's a very, very good academic school. How does that play in? How important is that when you're evaluating a potential recruit? Are there certain academic things that you just have to see? Can you make things work with certain guys? Depending on skill level and so forth. But how important is academics for when you're evaluating these guys?
Yeah, we can make things work, but I think what helps is, the financial packages you can put
Mm-hmm.
together for students that are high quality, um, students that have need, and then obviously that are talented. If you get those three, you can just maximize the money that you have. So I think that's a big deal. Of course, if we have to pay whatever it is for a player and we really want that player, we can. But I think it just makes it better if you don't have to just pay a lot for a particular player and almost get the same guy in return. But that's a mix and match kind of thing too. But I think just getting good people, um, because whether they're great students in high school, average students, like if they come in and they want to get better and they want to make themselves better, I think that always leads to a good spot. So I just try to think more along the lines is what who is the kid that's coming in? And then does he have potential for growth as a human and as a baseball player? And if those things are in place, I think we'll do a good job with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think if those things aren't in place, it just becomes more of a challenge across the board. And then, it ends up being a situation where you're asking for something that you might not get. So
Yeah.
I think just a person that wants to get better and wants to work hard, I think if they come to the University of Dayton, they'll like how that looks when they leave.
Awesome. Awesome. So, how do you guys utilize your camps? Families always have a lot of questions about, man, we get all these camp invites and how do we deal with all these camp invites? How do we pick which ones to go to? How do you guys utilize those? What should families expect if they were to come to one of your camps? How you guys put those together? Yeah, you just kind of talk about from your perspective how college camps work for you guys.
Yeah, so what we can guarantee is number one is they'll be able to learn some things if they're paying attention. So I think that's the most important thing is like they're going to work with coaches and they're going to work with college players that are going to teach them some things that maybe they don't know. I think that's the first thing that you could guarantee. The second thing is they're going to be playing baseball on that day. They're going to be active, which sometimes depending on when the camp is, sometimes they're not. So that's an advantage. The third thing would be like a fair assessment of the skills, which I think is a big deal. So it could be just the basic stuff that we offer as it relates to the camp, which would be it's like 60 time, throwing arm, um, and things like that. And then or it could be more advanced stuff from TrackMan, so that you have an understanding of where you're at, what you need to get better at, and then we do a written eval as well. So you're going to get an evaluation that I think is going to be pretty accurate. And then probably the fourth thing would be the potential to be recruited, not meaning that it's going to happen. So I think if that's why you're going, I think, and that's the only reason you're going, most of the people that go will be disappointed. But if you're going for all the reasons, I think that's more along the lines of what we're looking for is yes, people that come, they want the chance to be recruited. And if they're there, all of our coaches are there. And it's really the only time where every single coach is watching you at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. And so it does matter if you're good and it gives you probably a better chance to be recruited than it would be at just like a random place on a summer night. But you have to be someone that guys are going to want. And we take players from camp all the time. Um, but at the end of the day, it's got to be a mixture of those four things. And I think they are good to go to. I think you just need to be smart on how many you're going to and be realistic if you're trying to get recruited by that place. I mean, if you're a D3 player, that's cool, but if you're going to an SEC school for a camp expecting to be recruited, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I
Mm-hmm.
think you just need to be smart on where you pick. And it doesn't mean you can't reach a little bit, but you can't go too crazy if you're
Mm-hmm.
expected to be recruiting. If you're going there for an experience at one of those places, that's totally different. But I think it's just a matter of how you identify the schools that you like, where it maybe could be a fit if you are wanting to be recruited, and then you get to those places and you make those places most important. But
Mm-hmm.
they're important. There's no doubt about it. And everyone gets players from the camps. I mean, it's just they do. But if we have a camp on Sunday, if there's 75 guys there, we might make an offer to two or three. So that's just the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
it's more than none if they weren't at the camp.
Yeah, yeah. Ask questions, get feedback from people they
Yep.
trust. Look in the mirror, like, hey, if I go to this school, do I think if I was the coach there, would I recruit myself? Right? Like, ask
Yeah.
those kind of questions before they show up. Right?
Yep, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I think getting a baseline too helps is like, especially when guys are younger. So a freshman in high school shows up to a camp. I recommend getting every metric you could possibly get so you can see that on paper. And then you can be like, okay, well, I'm going to have to get faster. I'm going to have to hit the ball harder. I'm going to have to throw harder. So, like, you can understand where you're at and where you're trying to get to. I think that's important. And also on the other side of it is like once you start getting to your junior year and stuff is this is kind of where you're at and where does that profile for you as a player. And it's not all about the metrics, but obviously they matter. And it gives you an idea of where that might stack up to other
Mm-hmm.
players at that level.
For sure, great stuff. So, coach, some advice for families in recruiting. Obviously, as a really good Division One program, there's you're kind of looking at guys at more of that higher end, and so maybe not all of our families will end up having those kind of interactions with maybe like a program like yourself. But just general advice for families, like how do they do a good job of communicating with coaches? What are things that they can do to put their best foot forward? What are things that they can do to make a coach really be able to see what kind of player they may be? How can they best do that? What just some general advice for how families can best kind of present themselves to college coaches in the recruitment process?
Yeah, I think it just really depends on the school and the
Mm,
coaches that you're dealing with. I know that a lot of coaches don't respond to emails and they don't
mm,
respond to texts as it relates to just like random people interested in their school. We don't proceed like that. So if someone reaches out to me or they reach out to one of the other coaches, they'll be invited to a camp. So then it's on them to decide how important is it to them to get in front of us. And usually, like we offer one in August, we offer one in I think in October, We offer four between August and February usually. So if someone's that interested, they'll usually find a way to make it over to the camp if we can't see them. Now, it's just hard to see everybody. So like you sending schedules and things like that, that's fine. But it's not going to guarantee that anyone's going to see you. So you just have to understand that, regardless of what that all looks like. I think some of the bigger recruiting events, that all coaches are at, those are a big deal to try to get to, just because it opens a lot of doors for you, or even some of the big travel ball events, where there's a lot of teams where a lot of coaches go. Those are important to be at. But if you're not being seen by the school you like in those avenues, the camps are definitely the best, second best way. Because if
Yeah.
they're done right, all the coaches will be there and there'll be games involved, usually if the weather's solid. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you just need to make sense of what's actually happening. And you sending emails and reaching out, that does not mean you're being recruited. Until someone calls you and wants to bring you up to campus for a visit where it's just you or one other guy or whatever, that's not being recruited. You being invited to a camp is not being recruited.
Mm-hmm.
That just means someone wants to take a look at you.
Yep.
You're only being recruited if someone's actively saying, we want you to come to this place, or we want you to visit this school, or we want your transcripts. Like that's when it
Mhm.
starts to become real. But
Yeah.
until then, you have to realize I'm not being recruited by that place. And I need to figure out where I can get recruited. So I think just making sense and being honest with where you're at in the recruiting process is a big deal. Um, so if you're not being recruited, that means you don't have options. So I think it's your job is to get recruited, whether it's D3, D2, D1, whatever. And then from there, it just creates options, and then you can figure that out as you go.
I think
Uh,
that's great advice. Yeah, cast the net wide. And
yeah.
also, and we tell families all the time, like, there's going to be rejection in recruiting. Like, if you can't handle the rejection, it's going to be a really hard process to
Yeah.
go through because most schools you're probably not going to hear from. So continuing to just stick with it, right, and keep
Yeah.
casting that net wide.
And I think the good thing about baseball is, and I don't know, maybe it's changed, but I don't think it has. There's a place for everybody. I
Mm-hmm.
really do believe that. There is a place for everybody. And I don't know what that looks like at every single stop, across the country. But I know, like, if you care about baseball a lot and you want to work hard at it, for the most part, you can find a place where you can be on a roster. Whether
Mm-hmm.
you play or not, I have no clue as it relates to that. But if you care an awful lot and you really want to play baseball in college, I think there's a spot for everybody. But you just got to be smart on understanding where you're at and then just get to where you need to be just to get an opportunity.
And there may have to be some concessions, right? Maybe it's not as big of
Sure.
a school as you liked, or maybe it's not located exactly where you'd like. Not everybody can just kind of pick Vanderbilt, right? And just kind of go, I want to
Yeah.
go there and play. So sometimes maybe you have to go to that one stoplight town and go play college baseball if that's what you want to do, right?
Yeah, if you love the game, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I like about college baseball. If you love the game, you can probably get an opportunity. So a lot of guys, they think they love the game, but they're not willing to go play
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, maybe in the middle of nowhere where they just give you a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. But like if you love it, you're gonna want to keep playing, no matter what that looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be my recommendation. And if you don't, then you just move on with doing something else.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, Coach. I appreciate the insight here today. One last thing I just wanted to ask you about on the way out here. Any funny stories or a funny anecdote from your playing days or coaching days, something that kind of sticks out to you, just something that would be funny or fun to share.
Well, I think the snow is on our minds, right? So like
That's
I'm
right.
looking out and I don't know, there's 16 inches out there probably. And I worked at Franklin Pierce for 18 years, and the things we did with snow is like
Mm,
bizarre, but I can remember a lot of different things that we did as it relates to traveling in snow and uh, and the amounts of snow that we used to get. So like in New Hampshire, the storm that we have here, 16 inches, is no big deal. We're on the road, we're getting to work and we're practicing, and I can just remember a lot of trips where um, we drove through that. Well, I drove through that stuff, and some trips where we drove through. that probably didn't make a lot of sense. But there's been a lot of wrestling with snow over the course of my time, and I can just tell you that it never is fun. So
No,
the fact that it's kind of all out there right now, it just brings back a lot of the memories of what we've done over the years to remove snow to be able to play, driving through it, all that kind of stuff, just to play the game we love, but it's all part of it.
we'd all love to play in the South, but hey, man, half the country's in that kind of climate and
Yeah.
weather, and it's like, hey, we don't get it warm up until the end of the season, right? That's just
Yep, no
reality for us.
doubt.
So awesome.
Yep.
Well, Coach, I appreciate the time today. Would love to get you back on for another conversation sometime soon. But good luck with the spring season, and let us know if there's anything we can help you with as well. Okay.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Take care.